In this video, I wanted to share several clips of time spent working with 5160 steel to give you a better idea of what you can expect when you purchase a knife that is made of it. 5160 is not a super steel. It does not hold the longest edge. It is not even the most durable. But it has been around long enough that many people trust it, and many people will pay high amounts of money to be able to own a steel made into this knife. Here in these videos, I will be using what I have called the Apocalypse, a knife that I made, and it was my first knife that I made for myself that was out of a superior quality steel. Before this, I used saw blades and things of that such, which gives plenty durability. But when I had seen how 5160 could perform in many things and watching shows like Forged in Fire, I felt that I must have a knife made of 5160, and I wanted something with a utility shape that would be unbreakable. So I purchased a piece of 5160 steel that was 1/4 inch thick. I shaped it, heat treated it in my forge, tempering it in my oven, and came up with this monster, which I felt would only be named fittingly if I called it the Apocalypse. Between sawing on things like this brick to prove that the edge was durable enough, and several other tests of abuse, I felt that I had made a knife that was incredible. This steel is very strong. Its edge holding, depending on what you consider to be a long edge, is decent. If you are a person who has grown up using things like the Buck 119 or several other knives that are very commonplace and made of stainless steel, 5160 will not disappoint. It does hold an edge longer than most knives you will purchase. In my particular knife here, it being 1/4 inch thick, did allow for a more obtuse bevel. While the edge itself could be made razor sharp, its structure behind that edge would allow it to be extremely durable while shaving. While crushing through bone or wood and even smashing the knife into metal, it did not fail, it did not chip. This knife would go dull after long enough use, but I was using the knife more aggressively than most anyone should. The steel is very easy to heat treat. If you simply have a campfire and a hair dryer and maybe a pipe to extend the distance between the hair dryer and the fire, it is something you can heat treat yourself in your backyard and then just put into your kitchen oven at 400 degrees for 2 cycles at 2 hours long. The more I tested this metal, the more I enjoyed it. Now, all this metal that I am using is fairly thick. It did what I personally wanted it to do. It held an edge, and it was fairly unbreakable. I made several knives from this steel, and I gave it to many people. And every person that I've given it to has enjoyed this metal. Its inability to break due to its thickness and saber-style grind means that the people who have a knife that is made of this steel, made from me in the style that I build it, will have a knife that will not break over the course of a lifetime, with the exception of something bizarrely difficult happening to it. Some people feel that thick knives are not as easy to use when it comes to skinning animals. Having skinned a couple elk and a couple deer with my Apocalypse knives, I have found that the hassle does not bother me. The extra weight is not the biggest problem in the world to me. I would much rather have a knife that'll never break than carry something slightly lighter. However, I have made these knives and left the handle off for some people so that they could have a lighter weight, extremely durable knife. And the fact that it is 1/4 inch thick also helps with people being able to grab it effectively, even though there is no handle. Through all the tests that I put these knives through, not a single one of them bent or broke. The grinds on these are fairly obtuse, is the thing to remember. They are not extremely narrow, and you can get an idea of the width of the bevel itself when you see how far back it goes on that 1/4 inch thick spine. I truly enjoy this mill. I think anybody who purchases it is going to appreciate it. In this clip here, this is me restoring my knife after a great deal of use. After owning it for about 2.5 years, it cleaned up extremely nicely. This metal will patina, but it will serve you well. I took it on this hunt with me and used it to skin this elk out with, and I never had to resharpen it once while I was on the mountain. I also did have a second knife that I used as well because I wanted to test them both very aggressively. The first thing I did with the knife when I dropped my elk was I took it and I broke through all 4 leg bones above the knee and then continued to skin him. With a knife that is as capable of this, it seemed that the only fitting name is the Apocalypse.